Microsoft Excel for data analysis, Microsoft Word for word processing, and Microsoft PowerPoint for presentation. So I'll start with Microsoft Excel. So I will share my screen, and then please we'll take it slow and steady. Even if we don't complete this class today, we can always reschedule. But my goal is for every one of us to really get value for what you pay for. So I will not be that in haste. So I'll take it slow and steady. Okay, since you all have attended our basic Excel classes, or the one we had yesterday, it's safe to say that we all have basic knowledge. And then if there's anyone here who is still having some difficulties on the Excel fundamental, that is the basic, please kindly indicate in the message section so that I will know how to probably communicate to us. Otherwise, I will communicate to you as someone who has already known the basic. I'm talking about Excel. So in the next first 40 minutes, I'm going to spend the whole of that on Excel. Okay, so as we all know from yesterday's class, Excel is a spreadsheet application that is widely used in offices and even in the corporate world for data entry and management. But today, we'll be looking at advanced functions in Excel in relation to analyzing data or data management. So I have my data here. So this is a data set that I actually got from a website called www.cargo.com. You can visit there later, probably to get the same data that I'll be working with. Or you can as well relate the functions I'm going to cover on any data, provided that data has a good structure. So as you can see, the data here, as data analysts, the first thing we do once you are given the data like this to analyze, you take your time out to study the data objects, the headings, the number of headings that makes up the data. You also take time to study the various information or content each of the header are actually constituting. So as you can see, I'll walk us through the header so that by the time I start analyzing this data, you will understand my communication. So as you can see, we have the first header, which is a invoice ID, which carry unique ID for each transaction, followed by a branch. What it means is that this organization collected data from 3 different branches. We have record collected from branch A, we have record collected from branch C, and probably what? Branch B. Now we have city, which means that this organization record were actually submitted from 3 different cities. As we can see here, we have the Yangon, we have the Napite, we have the Mandalay. So these are the 3 cities this particular data set record were actually collected from. Then we have the gender, which actually describe the customer gender. Then we have the product line, which actually spell out the product category. Then we have the unit price, I believe this should be the amount an item is sold. Then we have quantity, which means or which define the number of items purchased by each customer. Then we have the column tasks. As you can see, the column attributes have specified the percentage rates, which is 5%, probably of the unit price or the total price. Now we have dates, the record we have collected. We also have time, the record collected. We have payments, and then we have costs. So this core could mean something to them. This is not Nigeria data. And then we have gross margin, percentage, and then we have gross income generated. So most of my analysis tonight is going to be based on analyzing gross income based on certain criteria on this data. Okay, now we have rating. So there are different rating number probably scheduled by the organization. So we are going to also, if possible, make reference to that column as well. Now, the next thing I want to find out about this data is how many records makes up this data set that I want to analyze for this particular organization. To do that is very easy. All I need to do is to highlight everything I have in one of the columns. Once you get to the last column, or the last row rather, your Excel status bar should be able to update you the number of records you must have selected. So you can see that it's taking me too much time to get to the bottom of my data. That is because I am taking it manually. Professionally, you don't need to do that. There is a way you can jump from this very first record, and that will take you to the last record. How do you do that? You hold down the control button on your keyboard, combine it with the shift button, and then hit the down arrow button. That will automatically take us from the first record to the last record, as you can see here. So with this, if I want to know how many records are in this data set, you check this particular status bar, giving us important information about the highlighted range of data. As you can see, we have 1,000 records in these data sets. Now, supposing I want to also find out what is the summation of the entire value selected. So you can also find it here, and the average of this entire value I selected. So now with this, I can go back to the top of my data by holding down the same buttons, the control, the shift, and this time around, you use the up arrow button. That will automatically return us to the beginning of the data. So as you can see, what I am doing since as an analyst, I am trying to understand the data structure and the kind of information is made up of. Because as an analyst, if you don't do that, it will be difficult for you to be able to draw your insight. What is insight in data analysis? Insight simply means the findings, because the company that probably gave you this data, they could be having issue of, making certain decisions as a result of the large volume of the data they have. And that is the reason why you are consulted as a professional data analyst, someone who can look at data and be able to draw insight from it. So that is how we run as data analysts. When you are given data that you were not the one that created it, that is, you are not the one that created the data, you don't just rush into it and start analyzing. You are going to have issue in analyzing it. That is the reason why it is necessary for you to work to study the data. That is step one as data analyst. Step one, don't forget, I said you study the data, and that is what we have done for the last 2 to 3 minutes. What is the next stage? Once you have studied the data, the next stage is for you to do what we call data cleaning. The reason why data cleaning is very important for you to avoid analyzing errors that can lead to erroneous statistics that probably will lead to what? Wrong decision taking or making that will lead to what? Disaster. So please, for you to avoid tendering a report that can mislead the public, what you do, you make sure you clean up the data. If you don't study the data, you would not find out where the data is not doing well, rather find out the errors. That is why it's very important to take your time to study the data, and then peradventure you find some error, you should know how to delete them. So in the next 10 minutes, I am going to walk us through how to clean up. There are no error in this particular data, but I want you to know that you don't assume, because right now I am seeing approximately, let's say 15 records. How will I know? Particularly in my gross income, like I told us, most of my analysis tonight will be based on the gross income value. Now, supposing I want to check whether there are empty cells, which means that at the point of collecting this data or entry, the person must have omitted entering certain value, which might have a way of affecting your exploratory analysis. So how do you go about that? I'm going to write a function to find out whether in this column there are empty cells without me having to scroll from the top to the bottom. So I will do that here using a function called count blank. So how do I go about that? I will start by entering equals to sign. Once I've typed my equals to sign, then I call the function count blank. So I'm going to activate it, count blank. What am I going to check with this function? I want to check if there are empty cells, that is cell without value. Now, you have to reference the particular column that constitutes the value you want to find out. So which column is that? That is my gross income. So I will specify by clicking the first range, and then I will tap the control and the shift button and press the down arrow button to select the entire range. So within this range that I've selected, which means from column P2 to column P1200, help me to find out if there are empty cells. So once I hit my enter, a cell will output 0, which means that all the cells are filled or engaged. There is no missing value. So with that, that gives you confidence as a data analyst that I'm not going to analyze error, or my analysis will be accurate. So that is how to check for missing value. If you are asked, or I am asked, what am I actually doing now as the stages of analyzing data or the approach in analyzing data? What I did is data cleaning, but I'm trying to find out whether there is a need for me to clean up a value. Now, that is for that. Now, another thing, again, you must watch out for is your date and time formats. There are some data that when they are collected, the standard query language format must have violated. What do I mean by that? The language of database says that when you are entering dates, the format is YYY, MMM, the DDD, which means what? The year should come, followed by the The month, followed by the The day. But if you can check this data that I got from Kaggle, you will agree with me that that standard order was not followed. And as a result of that, there are certain analyses, particularly when we get to conditional formatting, where we may want to highlight certain records based on the date or the year they were collected in the data sets. So when I get to conditional formatting, I believe that will be the right time to explain that. I don't want to distract us from that. But as we can see, you find out that the data entry personnel did not follow the date standard entry format. So, but that may not be an issue, except if your analysis, probably there is an analysis question that will probably be zero in here. But for now, I don't think there is any analysis based on what I have studied today that will take us here, except conditional formatting. So I will reserve that till then. Now I go to my column here, my total, because most of my analysis will be based on this. So what cleanup I can do here, you can see that your data is not properly aligned. You can see the alignment of the header total, and then check some of the value. So what you do is that you can highlight everything also by pressing the Control-Shift down arrow button and change your alignment here to this, so that your data, your record in the column describe total can have the same alignment. Now, if I want to delete, supposing there is a row that probably contains errors, and you have examined that eliminating that row will not have any side effect in the data you want to analyze, you can go ahead and remove it. Supposing that occurs, how do I delete row? How do I delete an entire record from my data set before I can go on with my analysis? All you need is for you to know from one of our classes, I think the one we took yesterday, the previous one, we told you that the rows are labeled with number, meaning, for example, if I want to remove this entire row, all I need to click on the number representing it. So with that, you can see that Excel has automatically selected the entire row. So all I need to do is to cut here. So once you cut, or you can automatically press the delete button. So let me not use the option of cut, because I don't have intention of pasting it somewhere else. I want to totally remove it from the record. So once you have selected the row, you press the delete button on your keyboard. As you can see, I have removed the entire record, but the row is still there, which automatically will create empty value here. So to avoid this, it's better you remove the entire row, including the value in it, to avoid seeing it as missing value. How do you do that? Click here, or you can right-click on it and select delete, and that will take the entire row, including the values inside it. If I want to find that again, you can see that. Let me do that selection to know how many records are here. The number will have dropped. Okay, so let me go back to the. So what I'm trying to do now is to walk us through some data cleaning skills. These are some of the skills you must have, because there are some data you'll be given where you have to delete an entire column or an entire row. Now, supposing I don't need the whole of this gross margin, none of my analysis will be based on that column. Why is it there? It will end up distracting me, end up having too many columns to process within my memory. So there is no need of me having it here. I will kindly click on the label, the alphabet representing it, and then come to this and select delete. So with that, you have eliminated that column. And that has automatically reduced the volume of the data, because there are times when the numbers of headers are much. That might be a challenge to probably an upcoming data analyst trying to comprehend the data. So that is why once you look at the data and there are some columns that your analysis will not be based on, it's better you clean them up so that you can have good analysis. So with this, I think I've been able to define some of the data cleaning techniques. Then I can also check for duplicates. That is another thing that is very key. I can also check for duplicates of record. How do you know if there are duplicates in any of these? Of course, for you to have duplicates, what it means is that you have same value in one attribute and then that same value in another attribute. So it does not make it duplicate just because you have C here and you have C here. What makes it duplicate is that you have C here, you have NaPiT here, and then you have C here, you have NaPiT here. That is all through the entire header. That is when you can say you have duplicates. But I don't think there is duplicates in this data set. So with that, we quickly move into the analysis. Like I told you, you are expected to get your biro and your paper because I am going to cite some analysis questions that we'll probably answer in our dashboard with the pivot table. So what I'm going to start with today is what? Pivot table. Pivot table analysis. What is pivot table? Pivot table is one of the most advanced Excel data analysis tool, which comprises of multiple statistical functions, ranging from basic to what? Conditional function. Pivot table is a function that can be used to analyze data without you writing a single function manually. Pivot table can be used to answer multiple questions from a single database. So these are some of the reasons why, as a data analyst with Excel, you must know pivot table, because if you know pivot table and the techniques around it, you will be able to probably answer most of your analysis questions. So the first thing I'm going to do to use my pivot table, I'm going to create another sheet and I will label that sheet as my dashboard. Why is dashboard necessary for us as data analysts, whether you are using Excel or other applications? Because dashboard allows you to communicate multiple reports. I can as well say dashboard is an interface that allows you to create an interactive report. A dashboard can answer so many questions simultaneously. So this is one of the reasons why, before you start analyzing your data, prepare your dashboard. That is where you are going to communicate all your findings. Any questions so far? I want to believe everything is going well with you over there. Please, I want to give 5 minutes for questions on what I've explained so far, ranging from the approach to data before you start analyzing it, and then the cleaning up exercise on your data. Please, you are free to ask questions before I proceed. You can also use the comment section if you have any comment, so I know how you are doing. Okay, so if we don't have question, okay, somebody want to ask question, good. All right, please go ahead.
Okay, on this Excel sheet that you presented, I saw something on the date column. I don't know if you noticed it. On the date column, there was a figure, there was a particular place that it was not captured a date, it was captured a figure like 4,000 something. But
This
the
very
rest
one, right?
captured date. You said?
The one I'm navigating at, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
I
what?
don't know if you noticed. There's a place. The rest captured the date like let's assume 3rd of November 2019. But there's a place I saw 4,000 something something something. It wasn't like a date on it, so I was confused.
Okay, so the challenge we have there is that that particular entry was not formatted with date format. So all you need to do is just to
Okay.
right click on it. Once you right click on that value, you select
Okay.
format cell, and that will take us to an interface. Then change it to what? You can see that is on what? General. So just select what? Date, and then choose your date format, and that will automatically what? Update it.
Thank you.
Is it clear, ma'am? Any other question, please?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Okay, so I proceed with the pivot table now. So I prepare my dashboard. So I go to my data. Before you can use pivot table, there are two different ways we can actually implement pivot table or use pivot table to analyze data. The two methods are the manually report design. That is where a user will use the header within the data set to build his or her reports. So what it means is that you are the one that will determine which header will be used to build your report. Then we have the pivot table AI. That is the pivot table artificial intelligence, which is a very powerful tool that assume your intention, meaning that once you highlight a data and click on the function, it will on its own assume that these are probably some of the questions you want to answer. So it will create different reports for you to choose from. And the good thing about that AI is that you can remodel the report to suit what you actually want. So here we want to identify the questions we want to answer, so that when I'm using the pivot table, you know why I'm working with certain header. Now, looking at this data, my first question will be drawn from city and gross income. And then my second question will be drawn from payments as against what? The same what? Gross income. Then probably my third question will be from the gross income, payments, and probably what? Total. So what is the first question? So the way we work is that, except you are analyzing live data, but as it stands right now, we are not analyzing live data for any organization. So it becomes our responsibility to assume what they can ask us to do. Is one of the aspects you must know as data analyst, which is actually called the critical thinking session. A data analyst must have the ability to think critically. And looking at this data, for you to be able to draw insight, we can be asked that the company wants to know, take for instance, the company wants to know the total gross income obtained per city, that is from each of these city transaction, probably for decision making. At the end of the day, we are going to present our observation and our recommendation, because at the end of our report, we will find out which city actually what produce higher income, and then which city produce the least. At the end of your analysis, you should be able to identify the what? The strength and the weakness, so that you can recommend new strategy for them to be able to work to up their game. So the first question I want to answer with pivot table is summarize the gross income per city. So what it means is that I am supposed to pick my calculator, and then when I trace this NAPITE to gross income, I add the value. I will trace another NAPITE, I'll add the value. I will keep tracing. The question now is that, for how long it's going to take you to do that? So they are finding that difficult. That's the reason why you are consulted, because you know how to use function to do that without wasting time. So the first thing I'm going to do is to create what we call analysis table. As a data analyst, once you have identified your question, then you create your analysis table. Your analysis table is where you are going to output the result of that question. So doing that, I will take everything I have here. I'll copy it, Control-C, and then go to my dashboard and paste it here, Control-V, to paste everything. And then I will impute the description. And what is the description? City. So once I'm done with that, you can see that what? There are duplicated values. The question says we should have each city represented here, not repeating each city. So how do I delete order without me manually selecting them and deleting them? All I need to do is just to select the first record down to the last record, and then go to my data menu. Go to my data menu, my data tab rather, or menu. Then click on data. So from data, you will probably see what? Data tools. Under data tools, click on remove duplicates. So, all right. So like I was saying, once you have highlighted the range of the record, then you go to data tab. And then from here, you navigate to data tools. And then from there, you should be able to see remove duplicates. So with this, I have been able to what? To remove the duplicates. So click, and now I have just, as you can see, an update here, 996 duplicate value are found and removed. And then we have just 3 what? Unique value. Okay, so I'm going to make use of that in one of the analysis. Now, going back to the data now to use pivot table to answer that question. What was the question again? We have to summarize gross income per city. Now, before you apply pivot table, the standard is that the data itself should be in a tabular format. And this tabular format has been pre-styled. That is, that carry different design. Mean that what? The data or the table format has been styled. All you need is just to want to implement it on your data. So how do you do that? You highlight the first cell, hold down the Control and the Shift button, and then highlight across the horizontal axis of the data, then press the down arrow key, and then that will enable you to select the entire data you want to format as table. The reason why it's recommended to format your data as table before using pivot table on it is to enhance updation. That is, this data might be ongoing data. As at the time you are consulted to analyze it, they have not come to the conclusion. So what it means is that there's every possibility of them making further entry after your analysis. How will those entries be captured in the reports you must have you have created? So for the pivot table to automatically update the future entry, that is why it is recommended you format your record as table, but it is not compulsory that it must be. It's just to enhance that process. So once you have highlighted your entire data, and then you go to Insert tab. So from Insert tab, you will see the two options. Remember, I was telling you about two different ways we can implement pivot table. It's either you use the headers in the data set to build your report manually, or you use the AI. So this is the option that will actually take us through the AI aspect. So I want to start with the manual method. So if I want to answer that question using the manual, where I have to use the header involved. So you click on this. The moment you click on this, as you can see, Excel will prompt you this dialog box. So there are certain settings you need to do here for you to be able to implement it. So there are three categories of item here. And you can see here, the first one says what? Choose the data that you want to analyze. So of course, this is the code describing the length and the breadth of the data. That is, the data you are analyzing with the pivot table is in data sheets, which is the name of the sheet where you have the record right now. And then the $B you are seeing there and $1 is what we call absolute arguments. In Excel, we have two types of arguments. An argument can either be absolute or dynamic. What it means to be absolute, it means you are saying that you have locked up, you have restricted the pivot table, you have limited it to what? To this range. That is what it means. If you remove the dollar, you are saying that you, as in the rows and the column, they are open. But as it is now, you have locked up what? Column B, and then you have also locked up what? Row 1. That is why you are seeing what? $B and $1 as the starting range. Then the ending range is this, which means that what? You have locked up the last column where you have probably the rating, and the last row where you have the 1,000. So there is no need of you touching this particular section. So just quickly go to the next section. And this says, use an external data source. What it means is that you might have the data you want to analyze with the pivot table in a different source from the sheet you are. So when you click here, it will allow you to choose from that. But it is now you have your data from this sheet. So it means that we skip this option and quickly what? Come to this option here. You can see that as soon as I activate this option is no longer active, meaning that you are no longer communicating the range of this sheet. You are now, you now want to communicate the range that is located in another source. But the option we need, let's go to the third option, which says choose where you want the pivot table report to be placed. Professionally, if you are handling company or data, you are not expected to present your report in the same sheets where you have the data source, the data you are using for creating the report. So the report should be in a different sheet from the data. So as a result of that, I will choose this option, which says what? New worksheet. But peradventure, I want it, because beginner will always want their report, their pivot report, because we see pivot table as a report. or as a reporter. Now, what it means is that the beginner will want to be able to compare and contrast when the pivot table is in action. They want to know the effects it's actually making on the data set they are working with. So for that reason, if the report is in another sheet, they know fully well that they will not be able to know what is happening to the data source while they are in the pivot table report sheet. So for that, a user can decide to have the reports in the same sheet with the data. If you choose this option, it will automatically turn on this section, which means now that you want the report to be created in the same sheet with the data, now specify, indicate the location. Of course, the report cannot be on this area you have your data. So what I'm going to do, I will make sure my active cell or my cursor is blinking in this location text box, and then scroll to an empty column and click to specify that, okay, my report should commence from here while I have my data set on the other side. Now, as you did that, automatically it has already read the what? The range, meaning what? $X, $2, giving us an update of the column where your selection, your active cell is, and the update of the row where your active cell is. So with that, I click OK. So what is saying? Data source reference is not valid. Okay, so let me see if I can take it again and see. Click and select. Okay, good. Let me turn this on back before that will be able to work. So let me go back. So I click and then select OK. Okay, so there's an error. So what I will do, I will go back. Let me format it as table first to avoid this error. So how do I do that? I go to Home, then Format As. Let me choose from this medium section of my table, and then indicate that I have my headers. So there is no need for Excel to give me additional description. So I'll make sure that this is turned on and then click OK. So the entire data is now formatted as table, which is the recommendation I mentioned earlier. Now I can proceed back to my insert and then implement the function. Now you can see the name of the table, and then I'll probably say I should create my report in another sheet. So I click, and that automatically brings out my report. But the report is empty, as you can see. What it's saying is that to build a report, choose field from the pivot table. These are the fields. Like I told you, if you are using the manual method to build your report with a pivot table, you will be the one to use this header to determine your report. So what is the logic? The logic is very simple. Always identify your question. What are you analyzing? Remember, if I'm to go back to the data set, we were told that we are to summarize all the gross income based on the city. Once you have registered the question, then it now becomes easier for you to know the headers involved. So the header involved here will be city, and then the gross income to answer that question. All right. Now, let me take a moment to explain the pivot table panel. I call it panel because it allows us to assign the heading due to the type of report we want to create. Let me start with the filter. Filter is for selecting certain records from the reports you must have created. But as it stands right now, we have no report. that we can say, okay, from the report, I want to view only what? City Yangon. So there is no report. So I don't have to consider this first. So these three aspects become the major area that you must concentrate on when building reports. So now, sir, how do I know in asking that question that says city and gross income, where do I drag? Look at this here, drag field between areas below, which means that to answer that question, I will either drag my city to the column or to the row. If you assign it here, it will give you a horizontal listing. And then if you assign it here, it will give you a vertical what? Listing. I consider this to be the best practice in presenting reports. You can change this label. This label should be city. So all you need to do is to click on it and come to your formula bar. Then clean up everything there and specify city. So I have updated that. Then I click here again in order to activate my field. There are times your hand can mistakenly touch here. If you click here, you are not going to see that section. If you click here, you will see it. Now, I want to output the value. Remember the question. The question says, summarize the gross income per city. So now I will now drag the gross income header, the gross income header. It shouldn't come here, neither here. So you place it here because the type of data you have in that column, they are value. So once you drop it, and the pivot table automatically what? Summarizes all the value. So with this, I have answered the question. So I can also click here and change the label to total gross income per city. I can just say what? Total gross income. So with this, I've answered this question. Now, there are other things you can be asked to do. Remember, I told you earlier on that the whole of this is called analysis table. So where I am presenting my analysis table is my dashboard. And I told you that a dashboard is designed to allow us to communicate multiple reports. So what it means is that I can also be asked as my second question that how many records, how many transactions generated this summation? The same here, the same here. To do that, all I need to do, you don't need to create another report. There is also another way you can do it. Let me take it like this first. You highlight this very one you have generated, Control-C to copy it, and probably what? Control-V to paste it here. But remember, the function pivot table is using right now, or by default, is summation function. And summation function is used for summarizing value. But to answer the second part of that question, I have to use count function, because the question says, how many records generated this value? So I duplicated this, but not to use the same function. So how do I change the function? You right-click on any of the value, and then you come to summarize value, and then you choose count. So I've answered the question. So as you can see, I have the total number of what? 332 record that generated what? This income, and then so on. As you can see, which of the city at the end of your analysis, always ensure that you observe the key performance objects. For example, now, which we call the KPI. Now, here, you can see that Yangon has the highest number of what? Transactions. But if you compare it to the summation, though it's having the highest number of transactions, but it's not having what? the highest number. Sorry, it's not having the highest income. Now, instead of me doing it this way, I can answer that question here. That is, I'm using single table to output what? Multiple what? Results. To do that, I am to reassign the header that generated this in my value section, which means that I will go towards, I will reassign the gross income, take it again, and assign it here. You can see that blue indicator which means if you move a little bit from it, you will see this icon, which means no-go area. So always ensure that you are tapping the edge in order for you to see that particular word color, and then you drop. Now, it will automatically create another report using the same function. So all I need to do, just like I did before, I will just right-click and select Summarize as Count. So with this, I have a single table outputting two different results. A single table answering two different analysis questions. I hope we are good. Are we good? Please, I need to respond. Are we good? Yes, sir. Hello, are we good?
Please, let's respond so that we can proceed.
Yes. Okay. All right, so that is, this is actually answering one level question. One level question, I described it because supposing you are asked to analyze Mandalay and also give the breakdown of the agenda. What it means is that we want you to give us the breakdown of the number of male and the number of female that actually generated this value. That is multi-level analysis. So the one we have right now is just single level question analysis. To achieve that, all I need to do is to assign the second criteria. The first criteria says analyze the gross income. Sorry, summarize the gross income based on city. But this second question says also give the analysis of the genders. So what it means is that I will take the gender header and assign it where I assigned the city that generated the Mandalay, the Napite, the Yangon. So I take it, I reassign it here under it. Now it will now create the breakdown. So what we are seeing right now is that you have expanded your report. So your report is actually giving multiple analysis at different levels. So you can see that female in this initial report, female only generated 2,520. Male generated 2,536. Altogether, now generated the value we have before. So I believe approximately. So the same thing here, and then the same thing here, and the total. So I can expand and collapse my report by clicking here to show you this negative sign, sorry, positive sign. You can also do the same. So at the moment, I'm presenting only the first question. Then if I want to answer the part B of that question, then I click on the add or the plus sign, and that will display the sub item. I can also be asked to display this, that is to analyze it based on the product line. So we want to know the products. Give us the analysis of the products that generated this value. So all I need to do the same thing. I'll take what? My product line and also reassign it. So I now have another level analysis. So this is now the breakdown of female, the breakdown of the female and the products they purchase, and then in relation to what? To the gross income. So like I said, I can collapse the report. I can expand the report. All right, welcome back. And I hope you have taken water so that you not sleep off, because we are going to the main aspect now. I hope you are practicing at least. All right, so let's quickly continue from where we stopped. We are still on pivot table. And we have answered just one question with parts or with multiple options. Now, there was another question again. The question of I want you to know the total payments made based on the cash or based on the payment method. So if we are to do that, it means that we are going to take the payments category also to our dashboard. So let me take the first three. Let me take the first three. I think with this, I've highlighted all the payment category. Then Control C. Then I go back to my dashboard. My pivot table. Okay, so I have my pivot table. I don't need to do that. I have my pivot table already. So what is the next question? We want to summarize the total. We want to summarize the total.
And also, can you share your screen?
You said?
Share your screen.
Is anybody
Yes,
talking to
yes.
me? I can hear you.
We can't see your screen, sir. Can you share your screen?
You can't see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, okay, sorry. Sorry about that. Okay. So let me take it again. So I was actually about answering the second question. And the second question says, we should analyze the total based on the payment category or method. So from the data, we realize that customer make payment with three types of method. They make payment with cash, e-wallets, and the credit card. So to do that, that is going to be another report. So what I'm going to do here So I go back to my let me copy this, Control C, and then paste. Just to allow me modify this report to answer that question. Now, on this report, I'm going to turn off all the category analysis data that are activated. I'll turn off city, turn off gender, also turn off product line. Now I have just my gross income left. Now I can now assign the payment method. I think I need to also turn off. Let me assign the payment method first. Assign it here. And then I change my gross income header to total. I also turn off gross income and then activate total. So with this, I've answered the question. So this is a summary of total based on the payment type. So I can click here and also redescribe my header if I want. Okay, so it's saying that that name is already in the data set. I cannot use it. So let me add additional description to it. Let's say total. Let me just add S to it, and that will make it look different from the first total. So with this, I have created two different reports. Now, I want to create one more report. So I'll copy this. And then probably paste it here. And then I go back to my data. What do I want to analyze? In this case, we are also asked to analyze the company wants to know, totals based on the gender. That is summarizing all the values in total based on gender. So I go back to my sheet. Then change this to gender. So change it to gender. We'll turn off the current header, which is payment, before bringing in gender. So I click, then turn on gender. So with this, I've answered this question. With this, I've answered this question. So let me place the. So I have three reports at the moment. So the next we want to talk about is pivot slicer. Pivot slicer is an advanced filter command that allows us to select a certain record from the pivot reports. So how do we go about that? I'll click on one of the reports. I'll click on one of the reports. Click on one of the reports, and then click on Analyze. So from Analyze, come in. So from Analyze, I'm trying to expand it so that we can see it better. So from Analyze, you can see your slicer. Now, but before you activate the slicer, you need to find out what exactly you want to do with the slicer. I need the slicer so that I can select record based on their type. So I click on it. The moment you click on the slicer, it will automatically display all the headers in the original data set. So all I need to do is to activate. Let's assume that I'm going to filter data based on city. From my report there, I think city and payment category will be the best slicer. So I will activate both of them so that I can use them to filter my data and then click OK. So with this, I have the two slicers here. So let me separate them. So for instance, if I want to, this is the report we selected before we activated the slicer. So meaning that this slicer will only regulate this particular report without regulating all. And the idea is that I want a single slicer to be able to regulate all the available reports. All the available reports. Hope we are all here. Let me find out if we are all here. Okay, good. Okay, so at the moment, if I click on cash, you will notice that it's actually analyzing only transaction, only total for cash, for both male and female. But meanwhile, I want in a situation whereby when I click on this cash, while it's giving me this report, it should also relate that report here and also relate it here, and also for all the reports available on this sheet. So to do that, I have to establish connection between, I have to connect this slicer to all the available reports. How do you go about that? You go to so to do that, click on one of the reports. Sorry, I'm having too big challenge with my screen. Okay. So to do that, click on one of the reports, then go to design. And then in this case, sorry, click on one of the slicer, then go to option, and then select report connection. So the moment you click here, it's going to display all the available reports you have created. As you can see, we have just 3 reports, and the 3 reports are well represented here. And only one of them is active. That is the one the slicer is connecting. So all I need to do is just to activate the rest and then click OK. Now let me do the analysis again. If I click on this cache, I want to watch what is happening to the three reports. The three of them are what? Affected. So what we have right now is that for cache, because you should be able to interpret the report we just presented now. And the report is, on this report, what we are saying is that Mandalay, or let me expand this, okay, sorry. Mandalay, this is Mandalay generated what? This particular value for only cash payments, followed by what? Napite for this same cash, and then followed by what? Yagon for this same cash. So now I need to resume order. That is what you need to return order value before you can actually what? Carry out another filtering action. So now let's assume I am asked to display only gross income from each of these cities where payment was made with credit card. So I click. So this is the report. But please, when you are giving your report in a dynamic dashboard like this, there is need for you to be documenting your results. Because as soon as you implement another option, you can no longer find the previous one. That is why, like this now, I need to have taken note of this, both the counting and the summation, before I return the value for additional what? Slicer. So that is how to connect a slicer. Don't forget, I said a slicer is an advanced filter tool in pivot table that allow users to display or to fetch certain record per time. So now you will notice that we have another slicer here, but if I click on this slicer, it's only communicating this report, meaning that this slicer is not connected to other reports. So the same thing that will be repeated. So click on the slicer you want to connect, and then remember, you go back to option, and then click on what? Connect, and that will automatically what? Prompt you the list of your reports, and then you click. Now I can analyze or slice with any of these slicers because they are all connected to my report. So I click here. So what I'm asking right now in this report is that these are the only total, both for male and female, from Mandalay. So I can remove this and also find that for Napite, remove this and also find that for Yago. And then as I'm doing that, it's also asking another question here. So this is the total number of transactions from Yago that amounted to what? This gross income. So now I can also remove all. So that is all about what? Using slicer, exploring pivot reports. Now, let's quickly look at another pivot function or feature. Let's look at using, okay, let me start from visualization. Supposing you are asked as a data analyst, having presented your tabular reports, you are to present also a graphical representation of this value, that is using graph. How do you do that? So pivot table has its own separate data or report visualization method. So how do we do that? You just simply click on one of the value of that report you want to visualize, and then go back to your Analyze tab. So from here, you can see pivot charts. So click on it. It will prompt available charts you can probably use to present that your report. Now you must know as data analyst when to use any of these charts, because we all have their strengths depending on the type of what analysis you are performing. If, for example, your focus is, or your analysis is comparing the percentage of the report, then the best chart to use is pie chart. But mind you, where the report category items are multiple, you are not advised to use pie chart. Rather, you use what? Bar chart. So in this case, I can use sometime for you to be able to draw your insights, you use what? Bar chart. Now, if I present this with pie chart, then you can see that in the report that I selected, I have just two what? Data category, such as what? Male and female. So what it means is that this is a portion for the male with the legend. You should be able to know which section is actually representing the total from male, likewise what? Female. Now, one thing about it is that I can regulate it. I can say this particular graph presents only male analysis. So all I need to do is to click on that filter icon attached to the graph, turn off all items, and then turn on the one you want to use. So at the moment, I have just for what? Female gender, and then I can go back and turn off the rest, and then to give the full analysis. Now, this same report, I want to visualize it with another graph. In order for you to know the difference between, or how you can easily understand your reports when they are presented with what? Pie chart or bar chart. So I click on the report again, or one of the value, and then I go to the analyze again, and then click on the pivot charts, and then this time around I'm going to choose this. So let me try horizontal bar, and then click OK. Okay. Now, so this is another graph. So let me reduce it. But please, when you are, because this is a dashboard, so you need to have unique arrangement of your item. That is, your report should form a design. So what I'm going to do, I think it's better I move the whole of this. Let me put it here, so that I can have all my visual on one side. Then let me have this here. So here I have my two different what? Visualization what? Two, the bar chart and the what? The column chart. But professionally, this is not really looking nice. What do I mean? Your graphs are not detailed enough to communicate your idea to the consumer. So what do? You activate some chart elements like the title of the graph. So I can quickly double click here to give it a valid description. So let me give this. So this is a graph of total against gender. So I can also select the graph I want to detail. I can also select the graph I want to detail, and then go to design, and then come to add chart elements. What do I want to add to my graph? I want to add data label. What do I want to achieve with data label? You will notice that if you are to present this graph like this, if you print this with black and white printer, there is no way you'll be able to see this color. So it is important attach the legend, sorry, the label. That is what the value and the label on the graph. And that is what exactly I want to do with my data label. So you select the graph you want to detail the label. And then you can use any of these options. So let me use data callout. So you can see with data callout, I've been able to know the male percentage and the female percentage. So I do the same here. So I go back to my design, and then using the same label, and then you can choose it as well. So with this, I have a more detailed graph. I can change the color just to make the graph value more detailed or more visible. So with this, I have my dashboard ready with a pivot table. Now let's try to regulate with our slicer again. So let me arrange this. Let's assume that I want to select this. You will notice that this slicer will actually communicate the entire report, including the graph. So let me click now. I want to view only for what? Mandalay. So you can see that as your tabular report is changing, your graphs are also changing. So let me take this off and do the same. Now, if I bring the other slicer, I think I have other slicer. So let me see if the other slicer is also communicating with my report. So let's assume I want to fetch only cash report. Cash report, you can see that this is also communicating. So any questions so far? I think I have done much on pivot table. I have just one more topic here to take, which is how to use timeline analysis to explore our pivot report, just like the way we have been exploring with the slicer. Question, please. Questions? So if there's no question, we go on another 10 minutes break. And when we return, we take the last session for today. And then we'll reschedule for Microsoft Word and PowerPoint. Jennifer, over to you. Jennifer, over to you, please. For the next 10 minutes. Is Jennifer hearing me? Precious, if you are here, please. I don't think Jennifer can hear me.
I'm here, sir. I'm here, sir. I can hear you.
Please ask question.
Please, if anybody has a question to ask, please, can you ask the question? I will write it down. Thank you. Thank you very much. But please, if you don't have questions, please endeavor to start the question.
All right, are we still here? Okay, okay. When you click on touch slider. Okay, I think it did. Let me check again. So you can see that it's changing. Please notice it now. It's changing. Any other question? Precious, was that the only question?
I think someone asked question in the middle of the speech, so
Eh?
I don't know whether the person is speaking now.
Please speak louder. I can't hear you. Your voice is down.
Okay, I said in the middle of the class, someone was asking a question. I think it's still on Frank.
I cannot still hear you. Maybe you should write it also as a message. Let me see it. I hardly hear you here.
Can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you.
Now, Onyinye Franca threw the question in the middle of the class. She said something. Let me ask you the question. Can't we start a new analysis without copying the previous one? That was the question she asked before. I don't know whether she's cleared or whether she's okay now, or should we still answer her question? I don't know. Please, can you go through the chat section and see the question?
Okay. So this session is about to end.